The cold November wind swept through the quiet streets of Cedar Falls, Iowa, as Michael Carter slowly walked out of the construction company where he had worked faithfully for almost 16 years. His heavy boots echoed against the cracked pavement, while a folded white envelope rested tightly in his shaking hand. He didn't need to open it again because every painful word had already burned itself into his memory. Due to financial restructuring, your position has been terminated. Those simple words had stolen everything he believed was secure. Only a few hours earlier, he had been a hard-working husband and father with a steady paycheck, dreams for his daughter's future, and plans to finally finish paying off the mortgage. Now he was unemployed, carrying nothing but fear inside his heart. He stood beside his old pickup truck for several moments, staring at the cloudy sky. People hurried past him carrying coffee cups, laughing with friends and rushing to work as if the world had remained exactly the same. But Michael felt as though his own world had stopped moving. He had spent years believing that if a man worked honestly, loved his family, and trusted Jesus every single day, then somehow God would always provide. Yet standing there with no job, mounting bills and uncertainty waiting at home, he whispered words he had never imagined he would say. "Lord, where are you?" No answer came. Only the sound of the cold wind filled the empty parking lot. Michael climbed into his aging pickup truck and rested both hands on the steering wheel without turning the key. Normally, his mornings and evenings were filled with worship music, but today silence felt more honest than any song. He leaned his head forward and closed his eyes. Memories began flooding his mind. 16 years earlier, he had entered that same company as a young man with nothing except determination and faith. He remembered the first paycheck he had proudly handed to Emily after they were married. He remembered working overtime so they could buy their little home. He remembered thanking Jesus every night for providing enough to feed his family. Now everything seemed to disappear in a single afternoon. Finally, he started the engine and slowly drove toward home. As he stopped at a red traffic light, his eyes settled on a small white church standing across the road. The front doors were open and a wooden cross stood high above the roof. For a moment, he almost parked the truck and walked inside. He wanted to pray. He wanted to cry. He wanted someone to explain why faithful people sometimes suffer so deeply. But disappointment had made his heart so heavy that he couldn't even find the strength to step through the church doors. The light turned green, and he quietly drove away. When Michael reached home, the familiar sound of laughter greeted him before he even opened the front door. 8-year-old Sophie came running through the hallway with a huge smile across her face. "Daddy!" she shouted, wrapping her tiny arms around his waist. Michael forced a smile and hugged her tightly, holding her a little longer than usual. Emily walked out of the kitchen carrying a dish towel, and one look at her husband's face told her something was terribly wrong. She waited until Sophie returned to her room before gently asking, "Michael, what happened?" He silently handed her the envelope. Emily slowly unfolded the paper, read every word, and looked back into her husband's eyes. Tears immediately filled her own, yet she didn't panic. She didn't ask angry questions. She simply stepped closer, held that evening. The family gathered around the dinner table, as they always did, but everything felt different. Michael barely touched his food. Sophie happily talked about school while her parents smiled for her sake, pretending everything was normal. After dinner, Emily suggested they pray together. They joined hands around the table, and Michael waited for his wife to pray because he couldn't find the words himself. Emily thanked Jesus for another day, asked him to guide their family, and prayed for strength instead of easy answers. Michael listened quietly with tears in his eyes. When she finished, Sophie innocently added her own simple prayer. "Jesus, please help Daddy smile again. Her tiny voice broke something inside Michael's heart. He quickly stood up from the table and walked outside before anyone noticed, the tears running down his face. The backyard was silent, except for the sound of leaves blowing across the grass. Michael looked toward the dark sky, filled with clouds hiding the stars.
"Lord," he whispered, "I've served you. I've trusted you. I've tried to live the right way.
Why does it feel like you've forgotten me?" Again, there was no voice from heaven, no miracle, and no immediate answer. But inside the quiet darkness, God was already preparing a story Michael could never have imagined. The next morning, Michael woke before sunrise, put on his work boots out of habit, and left the house carrying a folder filled with resumes. Throughout the day, he visited construction companies, factories, warehouses, landscaping businesses, and hardware stores. Everywhere he went, he received the same polite smile, followed by the same disappointing words. "We'll keep your application on file. Business is slow. We're not hiring right now." By late afternoon, his hope had begun fading faster than the daylight. Sitting alone inside his truck outside the final company on his list, he rested his forehead against the steering wheel. For the first time since losing his job, fear began whispering thoughts he had never entertained before. What if I never find another job? What if we lose the house? What if I fail my family? That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, he quietly walked into the kitchen, opened the old family Bible that had belonged to his late father, and stared at its worn pages. His father had always told him, "When life stops making sense, keep reading the Bible because God often speaks after we've stopped expecting him to." Michael smiled sadly at the memory. He randomly opened the scriptures and his eyes fell upon Isaiah 41:10. "Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God." He slowly read the verse aloud several times before closing the Bible. "Lord, I know this promise," he whispered. "I've quoted it to other people for years, but tonight, I need it to become real for me." Outside, rain began falling against the kitchen window, while Michael remained sitting alone in the darkness. He had no idea that within only a few days another heartbreaking tragedy would strike his family, one that would make losing his job seem small by comparison. And hidden inside that same old Bible was a handwritten letter from his father that Michael had never seen before, a letter that would change the direction of his life forever. The following morning, Michael's phone rang before sunrise. He expected another rejection from a job application, but instead it was Emily's voice, weak and trembling. She had collapsed while preparing breakfast, and the neighbors were taking her to the hospital. Michael's heart pounded as he rushed through the empty streets, praying louder than he had ever prayed before. Sitting beside Emily's hospital bed, he felt completely powerless. The doctor explained that she had a serious condition that would require immediate treatment. Medical bills were already beginning to pile up, and now they had no steady income. Michael looked toward the ceiling and whispered, "Lord, I have nothing left to hold on to except you." That evening, while Sophie slept in a chair beside her mother, Michael wandered into the hospital chapel. It was almost empty. A single candle flickered near a wooden cross. He dropped to his knees and cried without trying to hide his tears. "Jesus, I don't need a perfect life. I don't need wealth. I only need you to carry my family through this." As he sat there in silence, a verse suddenly came to his mind, one his father had repeated many times. "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God." Romans 8:28. He didn't understand how anything good could come from such pain, but for the first time in weeks he chose to believe instead of question. When Michael returned home late that night, he opened the old family Bible once again. As he turned its worn pages, a folded piece of paper slipped onto the floor. It was an old handwritten letter from his father, hidden inside the Bible years earlier. With shaking hands, Michael unfolded it. "My son, if you're reading this, then life has probably become harder than you imagined. One day, you may lose your job, your strength, or even your hope. But never believe you've lost Jesus. Remember this, when you can't see God's hand, trust his heart. He has never failed our family, and he will not begin with you. Keep praying, keep walking. Your miracle may already be closer than you think." Michael held the letter against his chest and broke down in tears. It felt as though his father was speaking to him one last time. The next morning, something unexpected happened. One of Michael's former co-workers called. A local church had heard about several families struggling after the layoffs. They were organizing temporary work, repairing homes for elderly people in the community. The pay wasn't much, but Michael accepted immediately. Day after day, he worked with gratitude instead of frustration. While serving others, something inside him slowly began to heal. One afternoon, an elderly man watched Michael repairing a broken porch. After the work was finished, the man smiled and asked, "Young man, why do you work with such honesty, even when life has treated you unfairly?" Michael answered quietly, "Because Jesus has never stopped being faithful to me, even when I don't understand his plan." The elderly man nodded thoughtfully. A week later, he called Michael with an unexpected offer. He owned a growing construction company in another city and had been looking for someone trustworthy to supervise several new projects. "I don't just need skilled workers," he said. "I need a man of character." Within days, Michael was hired, earning more than he had ever earned before. Around the same time, Emily's treatment began showing remarkable progress. The doctors were encouraged by how quickly she was responding. Weeks later, she walked out of the hospital smiling, holding Michael's hand while Sophie ran ahead, laughing through the parking lot. For the first time in months, their family felt hope instead of fear. Several months later, Michael stood in the backyard watching the sunrise. The same sky that once reminded him of unanswered prayers now reminded him of God's faithfulness. He finally understood something that pain had hidden from him for so long. Losing his old job had led him to a better one. His financial struggle had taught him complete dependence on God. His family's suffering had drawn them closer to Jesus than comfort ever could. God had never abandoned him. He had simply been writing a better story than Michael could see. Michael opened his father's letter one final time and smiled through grateful tears. When you can't see God's hand, trust his heart. He folded the letter carefully, placed it back inside the old Bible, and whispered, "Thank you, Jesus. You were with me every step of the way." If you're watching this today and you're walking through your own season of loss, don't let temporary pain convince you that God has forgotten you. The silence you're experiencing today may simply be the place where God is preparing tomorrow's miracle. Keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting. Jesus is still writing your story, and the best chapter may be the one you haven't reached yet. Before you leave, write "I trust Jesus" in the comments as a declaration of faith. If this story encouraged your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your next testimony could begin with one simple prayer. And in our next story, you'll discover how one unexpected act of forgiveness changed an entire family's future forever.